So, I finished Alien Isolation and I thought I would share with you my feelings, my opinions, and my verdict regarding this game. Now, let me say straight off, get it out of the way, I loved this game. It wasn't perfect, there were some flaws, but there were far more good points than bad points, far more. But the most important thing they had to do in this game, in my opinion, was they had to make it feel like Alien, like the movie. It couldn't feel like an FPS game that just happened to have a xenomorph in it. It couldn't be Outlast in space. It had to feel like Alien. And they nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. It was such a nostalgia trip for me. It was such a blast from the past, and I really did feel like I was playing perhaps a sequel or a prequel or something. I was playing an actual Alien game. So on that alone, this game was a major success. Visually, the game was great, which is pretty amazing actually, because technically it was nothing to write home about. The textures were okay, the graphics were okay. The anti-aliasing was actually terrible. It really was not good anti-aliasing at all. And yet the game looked great. And it looked great for two reasons, I think. The first one was the lighting. They just got the lighting perfect. The place was dark. You were always surrounded by darkness, but there were these sort of points of light. There were little areas where there was a light source, and they contrasted with the dark so well. It was quite a harsh difference, and the lights were all kind of cold and clinical, and somehow almost not comforting. And it just made the game look brilliant, terrifying almost. It made it look creepy. They just got it right. You felt like you were in the Alien film, that the lighting just matched. But so did the environment. I mean, that's the second thing they got perfect visually. The environment, the place, it was just done to perfection. The ship looked like the ship in Alien. The items, the beds, everything, the tables they sat on, it all looked like it could have been from the set. Now, I don't remember exactly what everything looked like in Alien, but when I saw it in the game, it matched in my brain. Little things. The computers were these great big CRT monitor things with a built-in keyboard. The sort of computers you got back in the 70s and early 80s. And they had these monochrome green screens, very low resolution with scan lines. I mean, whenever you found an audio recording, it wasn't on a disc or a little flash drive, it was a tape recorder, a good old-fashioned tape recorder, and it works. I mean, you could argue, well, in the future they would have had blah blah blah. Yeah, but this game was trying to get the feeling of the future as the people in the 70s saw it, or as the people in the movie business in the 70s could manage to recreate it. And they did, they got it perfect. If they'd somehow modernized all those little gizmos and, you had an MP3 player instead of a tape recorder, it would have ruined it. And they didn't do that. They kept everything genuine. It really did feel like I was playing on the movie set from Alien. And there was even a film grain effect, which was perfect. Ordinarily in these sort of games I disable film grain, but for this game it was perfect. It made me feel like I was watching a movie in the early 80s on a crappy TV, which is essentially how I watched Alien. It just helped with that nostalgic feeling. It helped make a game that is set in the future somehow feel old, like it was made 30, 40 years ago. Absolutely brilliant. And they got the sound right. All the creaking and groaning of the ship, the sounds of the alien moving around in the vents, all those little sounds, dripping liquid occasionally, just added to that horror feeling, that sort of sinister, spooky feeling. But what really got me was the music. I mean, occasionally the music was a little aggressive, a little loud, and it would come in a bit too in your face during danger scenes, but in general, they used it so effectively. There was music that was straight out of the movie, or if it wasn't straight out of the movie, it was really styled on the movie. And it just got such a nostalgia feeling and a scary feeling, because the music in Alien, it was sort of semi-pleasant and yet somehow unnerving. And that feeling was there the whole time. The story itself was pretty basic and stuck to a fairly expected formula, and to be honest, I would have expected nothing else. They were trying to go for familiar, and familiar was what you got. There was no major surprise. There was never a point in this you thought, oh, well, that's an interesting twist. You pretty much saw everything coming, but it didn't matter because you almost wanted it to be exactly what you expected. I mean, that's the whole idea of a nostalgia trip. You get what you had before, and they delivered that. I will say I felt that it went on a little too long. Once you, and again, I'm going to reiterate, there are spoilers here. So, you know, spoiler alert, go if you don't want to find out what has happened, you know, from halfway through the game onwards. Stop listening now, okay? So, from the moment you flushed the alien out of the airlock, I kind of felt like the game should be wrapping up, because you did quite a lot of things that didn't quite gel with the earlier game. The earlier game had that creepy, scary, desperate feeling to it the whole time. You were totally out of control. And once you sort of flushed the alien out, and you had some decent weapons, and for a little while afterwards you were facing humans and androids, it felt a little anticlimactic. And my first thought was, oh dear, did they make a mistake here? And I think perhaps there was a little too much of that. After you flush the first alien out, until the point where you go to the nest, I think that could have been compressed a little. But once you get to the nest, once you get to the reactor and you start powering it down, or what you're doing the purge, and all of a sudden you hear all those screams and all the slithering of aliens and facehuggers, and you take out your motion tracker and it starts beeping and there's little green blobs all over it. Oh my God, did you get the feeling back? It's like those last few hours of feeling safe and feeling secure and thinking, oh, this is getting a bit easy. They were trolling you. They pulled you straight back in, and it's, oh, you think you were scared before? And wham, you're back in the terror seat and you're running for your life. And it's worse than before in a way, because now there's more than one alien. And yeah, you've got your flamethrower, but I mean, at least as far as I had very little fuel. So I'm back to hiding in cupboards again and praying. And then the facehuggers added a whole new terror to the game, and it was really, really well done. So whilst I could sort of say perhaps it could have been shortened in places, they did a really good job of lulling you into this sense of security and then, pulling the rug from under you very, very quickly. And once they'd knocked you off your feet a little, they never let up. I mean, it wasn't quite as slow and creepy as the first half of the game. It was far more high energy, more danger, more running away, more screaming than earlier, which is the sort of thing that happens in these movies. I think the end was a tiny bit of a letdown to me. I sort of see where they were going with it. I sort of understand what they were doing, and it was kind of cool, but it somehow felt a little bit of a letdown for two reasons. The first reason is I didn't get any sense of closure exactly. I didn't get this sort of feeling like, right, okay, that's, this feeling where the end, you sort of almost felt like okay, I want to carry on. I want to be. Can we go on a little further, please? Which you could say is good, perhaps, but I didn't feel I had the closure. And the second thing was that I didn't feel like I was involved in it too much. When the final alien comes out and you flush him out into space, it's just literally, it comes up on the screen, look left, look right, press button. I would have preferred some sort of, oh, you need to get into the airlock and flush him, and then you had to run, and he chased you, and you run in, and then you hit the buttons manually. You didn't seem to have much control over the end, so I felt more like a spectator. And in that case, I almost wish they'd just done a cutscene. If they could have just had a cutscene where she'd done it, it would have worked better than trying to involve me in a half-hearted manner. But, I mean, it didn't spoil it for me at all. I mean, it's just one of those things where I just... little niggly things about the end where I thought, I think they should have done that a tiny bit different. And on the subject of things I wish they had done differently, the saves. The way they handled the saves was atrocious. In fact, I would say that was the worst part about this game. And in fact, I'm going to do a completely separate video on this because I don't want to ruin this video. I don't want to give you the impression that I didn't like the game, and I would like to rant about the save mechanism for Alien Isolation at great length. So I don't want to infect this video with the negativity that I'm going to express in that one, because I am of the opinion that that was absolutely terrible. However, as terrible as it was, it didn't manage to detract from the game. The game managed, in spite of that appalling mechanic, it managed to just be a brilliant game. They nailed the alien feeling. They made the game creepy, scary, interesting, and just a pleasure to play in that kind of the way, horror games are a pleasure to play. It's a bit of a difficult description, but you know what I mean. When you watch a horror movie, it's not pleasant, but you still loved watching it. Alien Isolation, they nailed that. They got it right, and any negative things I could say about it do not detract from the fact that I think it's one of the best games I've played this year. I think it's absolutely superb, and I'm hoping to see more of this type of game, AAA titles doing the kind of horror games. I think perhaps this is a sign that some of the bigger studios are going to go in this direction. That they're not going to fall victim to the idea that AAA games have to be guns and explosions. Although I guess there were some guns and explosions, but they can be horror games in a very, very classic sense of the type like Outlast and even Amnesia. But also I'm hoping this is a sign that that they'll do more alien-themed games. Maybe not straight away. I don't want to be saturated by them. But these guys got this right. They got it right. And I would quite happily play another game in the Alien universe if it was made just like this one. So that's it. There's my verdict. A bloody good game.